Hey everybody, it's me, Dan. You probably know that from your eyeballs. I emailed you recently asking what was standing in your way between the business you'd like and what you currently have, whether that is that you haven't started out yet or that you are doing something for yourself, but it's not really where you would like it to be. And your answers were great. Thank you for sharing those with me. And what I want to do in this video is do my best to offer some guidance based on those answers. If this leads you to think, hey, I actually do want to go for this, I want to be part of the Free Freelancer, awesome. Obviously, I would love to have you with us. But otherwise, I just hope this helps you deal with whatever it is in your way. I mean, my mission is ultimately to help more people pursue what it is they really want to do with their lives, because when you do that, you can give a lot more to society. If you're this gifted writer and you're working as an accountant, not only do you suffer, and probably your family and friends suffer a little bit with some bitterness, but the world suffers. Imagine all the great artists and entrepreneurs if they were stuck doing a job they hated instead of doing the thing that they're great at. And what would the world be like without those people? So I want to do my best to implore you to keep moving forward and share some insights around that. I'm going to do this video as one take because I want to share it with you today, and to edit and upload and produce and render and all these things would take longer than that. So excuse me if I'm not quite as polished as maybe the YouTube videos are. So the first thing I want to say is that when I'm looking at someone's status, with their business or really anywhere in life, the first thing I look at, which I know is not very ENFP of me, is I look at the systems and environment they're part of. Because often we blame ourselves for things that maybe we're partially responsible for, but the actual environment in which we're operating all but guarantees failure. And so I'll use the example here. We're talking about working for yourself, right? Name a time in human history, really any, where someone would decide they want to take on a challenging pursuit and do so with no real guidance, no mentorship, no apprenticeship, no process to go through, no knowledge, no training, no degree, whatever else, right? That's what most of us do. That's what I did when it came to building a business. That's what most of us are trying to do. And the thing is that's difficult. And I'm not saying not to do it, but the first thing you have to acknowledge is that's really difficult, right? Anytime in history you were like, oh, I want to be a shoe cobbler. Well, probably someone in your family was, and they taught you how to do it since you were 6 years old, and that's what you did. So when it came time to get shoe cobbling clients, I assume shoe cobbling is like repairing shoes, making shoes. I should probably have looked that up before, but like I said, one take video. When it came time to work with clients, you wouldn't be feeling really insecure, like, I don't know, am I ready for this? Because you've been cobbling shoes since you were 4 years old. You didn't get Lego, you got a shoe cobbling set growing up, right? A lot of really professions are based on this, right? Even modern day accountants, lawyers, etc. Not only do you go to school for it, but you start out as a junior at some company and you have to slowly work your way up. Well, if you want to work for yourself, there isn't really those options in many cases unless you follow a really traditional route. And so what that means is you're going to have to consider what would people get from that apprenticeship, from the mentorship in other pursuits, and how can I create that for myself now, right? So one of the things that really helped me when I was starting out is I surrounded myself with other entrepreneurs or other people aspiring to be. I did this not by chance at all, it was very intentional, but in sort of a random fashion. I went to whatever events I could, join programs and whatever, and being an ENFP, I guess I made friends along the way. And then as more and more of my friends were people that I really admired and that believed in me and were doing similar but different things, that allowed me to then meet more people that way. And it allowed me to change, and that played a really big role, right? This idea that you're going to start a business for yourself, locked away on your own, with no support, no peers, no one else involved in that, and then not have really bad days or like not get discouraged all the time or have trouble being accountable. Like, of course, that's the environment, right? My point of bringing this up is if you're in a situation that makes it all but impossible to succeed, you should not take that as a reflection on who you are or your capabilities, but rather what is actually almost destined based on the environment in which you're trying to succeed. Non-entrepreneurial example I would use is exercise, right? If you've ever developed a really good exercise habit, you know that it's probably not about willpower and discipline. It's probably about the mechanics of things. Having your running shoes by the door in the morning and making sure that your iPod is charged. I started running when you had iPods. Actually, I think it was shuffles back then, whatever it was, right? Having that charged in the morning, or hiring a personal trainer to do it with you, or living in an area. You know, we just moved back to Prague, and I was really thinking, like, where do I want to live from a health perspective as well? Because the old neighborhood I lived in, a great neighborhood, but it's on hills, kind of bored of all the areas in terms of running, and it's not only hilly, but has cobblestones. So you run on that every day, you're going to have some serious issues. And so I thought, okay, I want to either be on the river or by some of the big parks, and we ended up on the river. Guess what? I'm running more because it's pretty cool to get up and run across a bridge and have trains going by you and be on a river and all this. Like, that leads to changing behavior. So often we think we have to like tough it out and just, okay, if I just be super disciplined, I can force myself to do this, rather than changing our circumstances, which then make it easy to succeed. Not to talk too much about my move here, but I'm doing the same thing with this apartment. I am here in my office, which doesn't have too much echo anymore thanks to, well, I don't want to move the camera right now, but I'll do an apartment tour, an office tour soon. I've put all these acoustic boards up on the wall a couple days ago, and it sounds so much better. So my rule is, in the office, I only work, because I know the minute that I allow myself to watch a casual YouTube video or play a game or do something like that, this room loses its power. And so I'm designing the apartment to be based around my goals. Hey, there'll be a room that's more for being laid back and relaxing and whatever, but the office is about actually getting work done. And it's about creating the environment that will help me. Same with food and how you set things up, right? If you want to have a healthy diet, you need to create an environment that fosters that. So something to really think about: if you've been trying to do something completely on your own without proper guidance, then that's an environmental problem, not a you problem that is representative of your capabilities. On those, well, it's kind of a different topic actually. A couple people brought up time management, and someone emailed me. I won't read the full email, but he just said, time management is the issue. If I had that covered, then I would have the motivation and confidence and focus and everything else. And I asked him, are you talking about time management, or just you actually don't get anything done? Because time management is, you're a busy CEO of a company and you have to balance all your different, meetings and squeeze in 15 minutes here for the gym and whatever. If you're sitting around all day not actually taking action but thinking about all your projects, that's not time management. That's about actually getting things done. And if it comes to getting things done, we have props today. We have props. This is the first. These were actually just kind of randomly here. We also have some cards, so that we'll get into too. So when it comes to actually getting things done, the first thing that you need to do is focus and pick, ideally, one thing to work on. I have an older video that gets into this, that I actually have animations that we drew into it and everything like that. Some visuals, but essentially, every time you're switching your mind between a task or a pursuit, you're losing a certain percentage of brain power and time as well, right? So if you're doing one thing and that's all you're doing, like, hey, all I'm gonna do is build a coaching business. That's it. And I'm gonna have one service and I'm gonna sell it out and I'm gonna have a full client roster, and then I'm going to look to other things. Maybe not. Maybe I'll just be happy with that. That's one thing. You have 100% of your brain working on that. And what that means is not only do you get all your working time on one thing, but it also means that when you're sleeping, when you're showering, when you're going for a walk, your unconscious knows what to work on. It's like, yeah, I've got to solve this problem. How can I get clients? How can I have my clients be happier, et cetera, right? Now, you take on two things and it's not 50-50. It's like 40-40 maybe, because you're losing a chunk of your brain power to switching back and forth and the indecision. What do I work on now? What do I focus on? You know, you're going to bed and your unconscious is like, do I try to work on the podcast stuff now? Or am I trying to build the coaching business? Like, what am I trying to work on here, right? You add in 3 things, 4 things. Each of these is taking up more and more of your brain. I think the way we calculated in the lesson is if you're working on 4 things, you probably have about 15% of your brain power on each of them, maybe even a bit less, 12.5. And the rest of your brain power is going to juggling all these different things, trying to prioritize, trying to decide what to work on. What's your unconscious supposed to work on? And this, anyone who's a creative or an entrepreneur knows your unconscious is a lot of the work. I woke up today with 3 ideas, like that, we'll be implementing soon. Your unconscious does a huge amount of work behind the scenes. Well, if you're doing 4 different projects, especially if they're unrelated, what the heck is your unconscious supposed to do? Like when you're falling asleep, it's like, well, I'd like to work on the YouTube channel about relationships, but then I have my coaching business about financial management, and then there's that book I'm writing about space travel, and at that point your unconscious is like, can we watch YouTube, please? Can we go on Netflix? It's so much easier than trying to think about all the things I'm supposed to think about, but not knowing what I should think about. You see what I'm saying? So when you're trying to do too much and you don't decide, that sabotages you and it destroys your productivity. Then you're not really taking action and getting a lot done, which then hurts your confidence. And then the worse your confidence is, the less willing you are usually to decide on one thing and actually move forward with it, because you're like, well, I haven't really made any progress and I'm maybe not very good at what I'm doing. I've been talking about the podcast, the book, the YouTube channel, the coaching business, and blah, blah, blah for 10 years and I haven't done anything. So I can't commit to just one because I might fail because I'm not good. So let's think about 6 more things I could do. Throw that list of 10. Let's see how my unconscious does with that, right? I hope this is making sense. As I said, it's going to be a bit of a long one-taker here. But essentially, when you don't focus, you get way less done. And then you ultimately lose your confidence because you're not getting anything done. So your unconscious, by the way, my first 3 books were actually about confidence. And I did a lot of coaching in that area. So I'm a bit of an expert in this field of kind of how our unconscious interacts with our conscious and how that forms our self-image and our confidence and leads to action and all these sorts of things. So if you're not taking action, your unconscious is basically looking at you being like, kind of a loser, man. Like, what do you do all day? Like, I'm back here processing millions of bytes of information every second. And you're like, watching this Dan dude on YouTube again? Enough with the Dan guy on YouTube, right? And our unconscious is basically looking at our actions and forming judgments, which forms our self-image. I mean, that's a very simplified explanation, but a huge part of our confidence is based on our actions, right? The other thing that comes in is motivation. So I heard back from a lot of people around procrastination and motivation and these issues. Like, I'm not motivated, or I keep procrastinating things, right? And there's some other reasons for procrastination I'm going to cover closer to the end here. But with motivation is, in order to be motivated to do something, and I'm not just talking about even about like starting a business, but I'm talking about cooking dinner, getting out of bed, getting dressed, whatever. You have to believe you can do it, and you have to basically understand what you can do. I remember realizing when I was a freelance writer that when I would be procrastinating projects a lot, beyond standard writer procrastination, but the real deal stuff, that it was almost always because I didn't know enough about my client to actually do good writing. So I didn't have the tools I needed to actually take action, and therefore I just didn't do anything. But because I wasn't aware that I didn't know what I needed to know, I would just sort of get stuck up in this indecisiveness, procrastination, and then because that's a really, really painful place for a brain to be, you very quickly go to something like a Netflix or a Instagram or whatever to avoid it, because it's really painful to be stuck in indecision. It's one of the most painful states. And so it's very natural to want to avoid that and jump to some kind of a distractor. And then once you're in the distractor, you're kind of done for the day or the week or whatever, right? And so in order to be motivated, you need to know what you have to do, and you need to believe you can do it. And that's essentially the key to motivation, right? If you don't have any kind of game plan, you just are like, well, I'd like to be a coach, I think. I heard about it on the internet, but you don't have someone. Like, I don't know, maybe this guy, maybe me, could be someone else. But it should be me. If we've made it this far, it should be me if you're going to be anyone. But if you don't have someone who's actually laying it out for you, like, here's what you should work on next, and here are the next steps, and here's what you need to do, and also giving you that assurance, like, yeah, you're on track. You know, your work is good, your marketing materials are fine, or your pricing is on point, or whatever, then you're going to be stuck in this overwhelm where you're just like, I don't know what to do next. I don't know, like, should I be learning still? Should I be doing? Should I be working with clients? And of course you're not going to take action, right? That's like thinking, I'm going to get up in the morning and go for a run. I don't know where my running shoes are. I might not even own running shoes. My phone is not charged. I don't know where I am. I don't have keys actually to get out of my apartment. Weird thing in a lot of European apartments. You need keys to leave. It's great fire safety over here. But I'm definitely going to run tomorrow. I just have nothing prepared and I don't know where to run. And actually, I've never ran before, but I'm definitely going to do it, right? How likely is that it's going to happen? It's not, because you need to have clear, a clear plan, basically. And I don't mean a highly detailed plan. I mean, I'm an ENFP here. Like, I don't have a 4,000 step plan. But I mean, you generally need to know the order you need to do things and have that clarity in terms of moving with that. When you have that clarity, you're going to have more confidence just by having an actual plan. And then that is going to make it very easy to feel, quote unquote, motivated, like everyone says, right? But ultimately, there's other things that can come in with motivation in terms of mental health and diets and things like this. But at the core of it is clarity around what you want to do and a belief that you are on the right track or that you can actually do it. If you don't have those things, none of the other stuff matters. And what I've actually found is when I have those things, the other parts of my life more take care of themselves. Like, if I'm doing something I'm really excited about in my business, I tend to exercise more and eat better because I'm just like, yeah, I want to do this thing. I want to be my best while I'm doing it. Whereas when I just in the past have tried to like work on myself and I'm like, well, I'm not going to think of any important goals, but I'm just going to sort of think about fitness or health, and that doesn't seem to have nearly the same fire. But that could just be me as well. So this ties in with imposter syndrome people have brought up, fear of judgment. I think fear of judgment is probably a better label than that. Imposter syndrome, and if you've used this term with me, don't feel bad because I'm going to tell you used it wrong here. Probably 100 people at this point have used it wrong with me, but I just feel a need to correct it. So what imposter syndrome really is in terms of a diagnosis and that, actually, I don't know if it's something that can be diagnosed, but in terms of a proper psychological term, is people who are very successful and don't believe they deserve it and believe they are going to be found out for it, and then they'll lose everything. So this tends to be more in women than men, and it's usually like young executives, right? So imagine someone's like 34 and she's been promoted and she's a vice president at some big tech company and is like, maybe came from nothing, came from a family that didn't have a lot, and is like, I don't deserve this. Like, people are going to find out. It ties in with insecurity, but anyhow, so that's proper imposter syndrome. What we're really talking about every single time someone has brought up imposter syndrome to me is a healthy self-doubt because you want to deliver results and give people value. So if you come to me and say, Dan, I want to coach people on how to be more creative, and I have imposter syndrome. I'll give you the whole speech about imposter syndrome, and then I'll say, well, why are you feeling this? Like, you're feeling anxious that you won't be good enough. It's like, yeah, I'm anxious. Like, what if I can't help them? What if I'm not good enough? Yeah, that's how you should feel, because you care about people and you want to do good work. The only people who don't feel that are sociopaths. Maybe some of the ENTJs too, But really, you should, like, if you care about serving people, you will feel that. That's a good thing, right? If you didn't feel that, then you'd half-ass the work and under-deliver and not actually help people, which was your whole goal, right? So what we're talking about here is not some deep-rooted imposter syndrome that goes back to childhood. It's a super normal, healthy thing that you want to deliver on something and you feel nervous because you've never done that thing. Cool. You know how you get over that? It's going to blow your mind. You just do the thing. And in the middle, you'll be super nervous, and maybe you'll run around your apartment literally screaming. Maybe you'll have to punch some beanbag or something. Maybe you'll, I don't know, have to have a lot of wine before your first client meeting, whatever it is. It's normal, and then you work with someone, and then you'll be nervous, and then you help them, and then you'll be a bit less nervous the next time. And then gradually you will get over that. That, I believe, is the healthy way to do it. Because otherwise, you're kind of an insane person, right? Like, let's say you've never done this thing, and you just believe, because you go work with, I don't know, a hypnotist, right? And they're like, you can do it, you can do it. Yeah, you want a healthy level of I can do it, but if you're like, I can do this, I'm the best. Well, you don't know. You haven't worked with people yet, right? You got to go out there and do it a few times. And sometimes it will go well and sometimes it might not. Although in my experience, people who really are nervous about their ability to deliver tend to be the ones who over deliver and are actually really good at the thing that they were nervous about. They're nervous about it because they have really high standards and they want to deliver on such a high level that level they want to deliver on basically is intimidating and creates some kind of anxiety. So the basic solution is, like I said, to take action. I remember my first freelance writing client, I talked about him on the training, was $16 an hour. And the first project was to write a newsletter blurb using real estate statistics, but make it funny and engaging. Great, challenge accepted, not fun. So I was super nervous about this, right? I was like, I'd written before, blogs and things like this for myself, but I was so nervous about this. Spent 4 hours on it, wrote it, sent it to the client, and this client was sort of a friend of mine, And he wrote me and said, like, hey, I'm going to be in Vancouver in a few days. Can we meet, talk about it? And I was like, oh, well, that's terrifying. My stomach was in knots until until we met. The whole time, I'm like, oh, I must suck. This is going to be terrible, whatever. We meet and sit down, and the first thing he says is like, wow, talk about knocking it out of the park on your first time. Like, you couldn't have told me that in the email? Come on. So my point of sharing that is not that you will always knock it out of the park on your first time, but that those nerves are totally normal. And the way you get over them is by working with people and taking action. I talked about this in the training, right? It's one of the reasons I think it's actually often a good thing to charge less when you start out. I talked about how I started out charging $16 an hour writing, which is way too low in the Vancouver freelance writing market, but within a year, maybe year and 3 months, I was charging like $150 an hour. And the reason, I think, one of the reasons at least I was able to do that, aside from some of the strategies and being a good writer, was I undercharged early, so I got lots of experience, which boosted my confidence, and then I felt good charging that higher rate. Whereas if I had have tried to charge too high early on and people kept telling me, no, that's too much, or because they paid a lot, they weren't happy with the work, and then that would beat down my confidence and cause all that. So if you have a fear of judgment, it's totally normal, right? And this often can come up too with sharing what you're doing on social media or, to your networks and telling them that's really normal. And, one of the solutions is obviously to take action and just accept, hey, this is going to be scary, but so are roller coasters and horror films and whatever. And, let's do it. And in reality, none of those things actually really hurt you in real life either. Just like posting something on social media people might not like doesn't actually hurt you as well. But the reality is, in my experience and pretty much across the board from my clients, I've never heard otherwise, when you actually do share what you're doing with people, you end up finding a lot of support. The people that you imagine would be tearing you apart and saying, oh, you can't do this or that, you realize that that's mostly in your head. You're projecting. You've created an image of a parent or a certain friend who's really pessimistic or whatever, and they're living in your head. And when you actually do the thing, you don't hear much of it. People tend to criticize us a lot more before we take action. Once you're doing something, I find people become a lot more supportive. So, let's see. I might be done here. Oh, no, I was going to add to it. So one is you will find, I think, more support than you imagine. But the other thing that really helps with that, and yes, this is totally encouraging you to join the Free Freelancer, and I'm okay with that because I know how valuable it can be. And I got to lead by example here, right? How can I tell you to promote yourself and believe in yourself and I don't do the same? One of the other things you can do is change your peer group and get positive support from people, right? That's some of the best feedback on the Free Freelancer is the change in peer group, the people that one another meets. If you want to learn more, there's tons of videos of that on the Free Freelancer page of members talking about their accountability partners or just the general group environment and what it's like to spend time with 15, 20 other people who are like supportive and encouraging and believe in you, but also like know what they're talking about often and can give you some positive critiques that help you do better or the support when you need it. Like, of course, if you're surrounded by people who are very risk avoidant, very safety based, very employee mindset, like what do you expect when you go up to them and you say, hey, I have this dream, I want to start a business and maybe travel the world or help people do this and that? Like, do you think that person who's super like safety oriented and kind of pessimistic by nature, maybe they're a lawyer where you're trained to be pessimistic, do you think they're going to be like, yes, I believe in you, that's going to go perfectly? Like, no, but it has nothing to do with you. It just has to do with that's kind of their way of thinking, right? They're a risk averse person. So changing your peer group and perhaps having sort of a mentor who can give you some guidance about, are you in the right direction? Are you on track? What you should do next is one of the best ways to get over this fear as well. You're still going to have some of it. And that, as I said, that's healthy to have some of it. But it certainly helps when you change up who you are spending time with. That, I think, brings us to the end here. I'm going to attempt to sum this up, if I can. Who says ENFPs can't? I think this has been somewhat coherent, right? Good explanations. Ultimately, the things that I think make the biggest difference is, number one, your environment and the systems around you, right? So if you're in an environment that is not supportive, that is not teaching you what you need to know, then like that's gonna cause a problem, right? It's like trying to live in the, middle of Belgium and not get fat, eating French fries and drinking Belgian beer all day. Like that's not gonna be possible, right? You gotta move by the river in some city with kind of healthy food and also, okay, Prague has really good beer, but you know what I'm saying. So change your environment and think of kind of your systems and processes, right? Rather than beating yourself up, think about like what tools would you need? I've been building a lot of furniture here because, it's a new place, we're setting things up and whatever. And I don't actually have a toolkit. I have bits and pieces from my old toolkit that somehow a lot has disappeared, and whatever comes with IKEA furniture. And you realize, like, when you actually have real tools, things are a lot easier, right? It's like trying to assemble something using a pair of pliers and, your fingers trying to hold bolts. Like, you kind of can get it done, sort of, but it's a lot harder than if you just have a proper toolkit laid out and you're like, oh yeah, that's how you're supposed to work. That makes things a lot easier, right? The second part is really about taking action and just realizing that feeling nervous, feeling anxious, worrying about what people think, that's called being a human being who cares, especially being an NF. That is not a sign from the heavens that you are not meant to be doing this. That is just what it is. And so if you want to really help with that, the best thing is to take action, to start working with people, to get clients, to get things done. And then that is actually what is going to build your confidence, help you be more motivated, etc., etc. And I guess in the middle there, like step 1.5, and that sort of ties in with the environment and systems, is to have somewhat of a plan and actually know what you need to do, obviously. And then that's going to help you then do those things, get more motivation and confidence and everything else. So that's it from me. Free Freelancer does close for enrollment this week. If you think having me in your corner and meeting with me one-on-one as well as in small group environments would really change the game for you and change your motivation levels or your belief in yourself. And if you think that the knowledge I picked up over more than a decade now in terms of marketing and talking to clients, dealing with clients, in terms of delivering your service and organizing yourself and arranging your days and also feeling confident and having that self-belief, if you think that is going to bring a lot of value to you and perhaps save you a lot of time in your journey, I don't doubt that if you're watching this now that you're very capable of working for yourself or growing the business that you already have. That my offer here is really about helping you do it faster, helping you do it perhaps more effectively, and honestly more fun, because you'll be doing it with a great group of people. I am really fortunate to work with some of the coolest clients in the world and have a great community. And if you think being a part of that and having my mentorship as you build your business would help accelerate things and make it a much more enjoyable experience, then I would definitely encourage you to join us in the program. There is a 100% money back guarantee, so if you change your mind or don't like how things are turning out, you've got plenty of time to request that refund. And that's about it. So hopefully we will work together soon. And if not, I still wish you all the best, all the success, and look forward to hearing how the advice here has impacted you and your business.